50 years. That's how long an old man in a small Massachusetts town kept the same strange habit. Every year, on the first cold morning of December, he got out of bed before the sun came up. He went down to the kitchen in the dark. He made a full pot of coffee. Then he sat at the table and watched the snow on his lawn. He never drank the coffee right away. He just kept it warm on the back of the stove. His wife asked him about it once. In 1963, they had been married for 17 years. She wanted to know why. He thought about her question for a long time. Then he said one sentence. "There was a day a long time ago. I was very cold, and somebody made sure I got something hot." That was it. She waited for more. There was no more. She never asked again. He died in 1993 at the age of 68. Heart attack. His youngest son found him at the kitchen table on a cold December morning. There was a pot of coffee on the back of the stove. This is the story of the day he got warm. It happened on a frozen road in Belgium in 1944. It is not in the history books. It is not in the movies. It is not even in General Patton's own diary. But it happened, and it changed the way the Third U.S. Army fed its men for the rest of the war. The temperature is 14 degrees. And still dropping. A staff car moves along a frozen back road outside the town of Arlon. The road is 2 lanes of packed ice on top of older ice, the kind that won't melt until April. Pine trees lean in from both sides. The branches are heavy with snow that has not moved in 6 days. The sky is the color of wet cement. Inside the car, a man in his 60th year sits in the front passenger seat. A map lies across his knees. He wears a polished helmet with 3 silver stars on the front, bigger than regulation, because he has always wanted them that way. On his belt is an ivory-handled Colt revolver he has carried since he chased Pancho Villa across Mexico in 1916. He does not speak. He has been awake since 4 in the morning. In some form, he has been awake since December 17th. This is General George S. Patton, commander of the 3rd United States Army. 3 days ago, in a stone room in Verdun, France, Patton told General Eisenhower something no one in the room believed he could do. He said he could turn 3 of his divisions 90 degrees to the north, move them through winter, and attack the southern edge of the German offensive within 72 hours. The room laughed. Then the room stopped laughing. Then the room gave him the order. He did it. The divisions turned. The columns moved. The maps were redrawn in pencil, then in ink. Military historians would later call it one of the greatest movements in the history of mechanized war. But somewhere in that miracle, somewhere between the plan and the doing of it, something small got left behind. The field kitchens. Patton does not know this yet. The car slows. Up ahead, a supply convoy has stopped. 6 trucks, canvas tops. The lead truck has its hood up. A driver is bent over the engine. Nobody seems to be in a hurry. Patton looks at the trucks. He looks at his watch. He looks at the map. Then he opens the door. The cold takes the breath out of his lungs. He does not react. He has been cold since the 17th too. He walks down the line of trucks. His boots crush the ice. His driver follows a few steps behind. The men in the convoy notice him one by one. Those 3 stars are not something you mistake for anything else. At the 4th truck, a soldier is sitting on the running board. He is wearing every piece of clothing he owns. His hands are wrapped around nothing. There is no cup. There is no warmth. He is sitting because he has been sitting a long time. And there is no reason to stand. He sees the helmet. He stands, at ease. Patton says, the soldier cannot relax. He is 19 years old. He is from a small town outside Worcester, Massachusetts. He signed up 4 months after Pearl Harbor. He has been with the 26th Infantry Division since basic training. He does not know this is Patton. He only knows it is a general. When did you last eat a hot meal? The question is not what the soldier was expecting. He has to think about it. He looks down at the road. He looks back up. His mouth opens. Closes. I'm not sure, sir. Try a few days, sir. How many days? A pause. 3, sir. Maybe 4. Patton looks at him for a long moment. He looks at the boy's hands, cracked open at the knuckles. He looks at the boy's face, that flat, empty look of someone who has stopped expecting things. He looks at the boy's boots, wet through. What have you been eating? K rations, sir. Cold. Patton does not move. The wind moves the pine branches. A piece of snow falls off the hood of the nearest truck and makes no sound. Cold, Patton says. Yes, sir. Patton turns to his aide who has caught up. Who commands this sector? The aide tells him. Patton walks back to the staff car. He does not say goodbye to the boy. He does not say thank you. He does not say anything. He gets in. He shuts the door. He picks up the map. He stares at it for 30 seconds without seeing it. Then he says to no one in particular, drive. To understand what just happened, you need to know about the 26th. The 26th Infantry was a National Guard unit out of Massachusetts, old, storied. The men called themselves the Yankee Division. Their fathers had fought in World War I. Their grandfathers had fought in the Civil War. These were not green troops, but by December 1944, they were not what they used to be either. In November, the Yankee Division had taken heavy losses in the Saar campaign. They were pulled off the line on December 8th to rest and refit. Replacements came up. Most of the replacements had not finished training. Most had been in Europe less than 10 days. When the Germans attacked through the Ardennes on December 16th, the 26th was still in reserve. They were not supposed to be in this fight. They were supposed to be drinking coffee in barracks, writing letters home. Instead, on the night of the 18th, the orders came, move north, move now, cross into Luxembourg, attack toward Wiltz, hit the German flank where it hurts. They moved. Through ice and dark, and a wind that came down the Moselle Valley like something with teeth. Trucks broke down and were left where they broke. They passed columns of frozen civilians walking the other way. 3 days without seeing the sun. Because the sun never came out, and somewhere in all that moving, the field kitchen stopped. If you like stories like this, the small human details buried underneath the famous battles, this channel covers a new one every week. Subscribe if that sounds like your kind of history. Here is the first thing to understand about Patton on December 22nd, 1944. He is not the man in the movie. The movie is 26 years away. He is 59 years old. He has not slept more than 4 hours at a stretch in 6 days. He is fighting a war on 3 fronts inside his own head. The Germans in front of him, Eisenhower behind him, and the part of himself that has always suspected he was born too late for the only kind of glory that matters. Here is the second thing. He did not stop the car because he cared about a boy from Worcester. He stopped the car because his diary entry from the night before, December 21st, 1944, says this in his own handwriting. I am worried about the 4th Armored. They are moving too fast, and their flanks are exposed. The 4th Armored Division was the tip of his spear. They were racing north to break through to Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne had been surrounded since the 20th. That morning, December 22nd, General Anthony McAuliffe, acting commander of the 101st, had received a written surrender demand from the Germans. He wrote back one word. The word was nuts. Patton did not know about the reply yet. He would not know for several hours. But he knew this. The 4th Armored had to break through. And the 4th Armored could not break through if its supply chain was bleeding out behind it. He stopped to inspect the convoy, because the convoy was part of his spear. The boy from Worcester was an accident. The boy from Worcester was a question that opened up under Patton's boots. When did you last eat a hot meal? 3 days, sir. Maybe 4. December 22nd minus 3 days was December 19th. The 19th was the day the Yankee Division began its pivot. The day the maps were redrawn. The day the kitchens fell off the back of the war. Patton is still in the car. He is still looking at the map. In the back of his head, in the part of him that has trained for 36 years to notice the gap between what an army is supposed to do and what it actually does. Something is starting to align. A boy on a running board. A convoy that has been stopped too long. A driver who is not in a hurry. 3 days, maybe 4. He does the arithmetic. The arithmetic does not give him an answer. The arithmetic gives him a problem. He is the fastest general in the American army. He has just done what history books will call one of the great maneuvers of modern war. He has turned an entire field army 90 degrees in 72 hours, in winter, on ice, under enemy fire. without losing a single division to confusion. And somewhere in that triumph, a 19-year-old boy from Worcester has been sitting on a running board so long he has forgotten what hot food tastes like. Patton sets the map down. He says quietly, to no one, 3 days. The car drives on. The farmhouse is 2 stories of grey stone with a slate roof. The wooden door has been kicked in at least twice in the last week. Germans held it on the 16th. Americans took it back on the 19th. A piece of the doorframe is splintered where a rifle butt went through. Nobody has fixed it. Nobody is going to. Inside, it is warmer than outside, by about 10 degrees, which means it is around freezing. A coal stove burns in the corner. The stove is too small for the room. The men who work here have gotten used to keeping their gloves on indoors. 4 men are in the front room when Patton arrives. A clerk at a typewriter, a radio operator with a headset around his neck, a runner sitting on an ammunition crate, and a battalion supply officer bent over a wooden desk that used to belong to a Belgian farmer. The desk is covered with paper, maybe 200 sheets, some stacked, some not. The supply officer is 25 years old. He has been an officer for 14 months. He has been in Europe for 90 days. He is doing the best he can. When the door opens, he does not look up. He thinks it is the runner coming back with coffee. The runner stands up so fast he knocks over the crate. Patton walks in without removing his helmet. He brings the cold in with him. The clerk stops typing. The radio operator pulls his headset all the way off. The supply officer finally looks up. The look on his face is the look of a young man who has just understood that the next 60 seconds will be the longest of his life. "Where is your commander?" Patton says. There is no question mark at the end of it. The supply officer points to a door. Behind that door is Lieutenant Colonel Carver. He is 41 years old. From Hartford, Connecticut. He was a textile salesman before the war. Inside his footlocker, he keeps a photograph of his wife and 2 daughters standing in front of a Buick. He is competent. His men like him. And right now, he is 3 feet away from the most dangerous human being he has ever met. He stands. He salutes. Patton returns it and tells him to sit down. Carver cannot sit down. His knees won't let him. "You have a private in this battalion," Patton says, "who has not had a hot meal in 3 days. I want to know why." Carver opens his mouth, closes it. "Sir, I will find out. Find out now." Carver walks past Patton into the front room. He calls the supply officer over. His name is Lieutenant Frank Sykes. He is the man at the desk. He is the man with the paper. The conversation is short, not loud. Patton does not raise his voice. He does not need to. There is a report. The supply officer says. The report is from the battalion Metz sergeant. It describes a road junction under German artillery fire since the 17th. 2 supply trucks have already been hit. The mess sergeant has found an alternate route through a neighboring battalion sector. He has asked for permission to use it. That permission requires approval above battalion level. The report came in 2 days ago. The supply officer has not read it. He goes to find it. He has to look through the stack twice. It is third from the bottom, nearly 2 full days. Patton takes the report. It is 1 page, typed, single-spaced, signed in pencil at the bottom. He reads it twice. He hands it back. He looks at the supply officer for a long time. He says nothing. Then, "Get me the sergeant who wrote this." The mess sergeant arrives 14 minutes later. He has walked half a mile through the cold. His name is Donald Briggs. He is 31 years old. He was a short-order cook in a Pittsburgh diner before the war. He has been running mess units in Europe since the Normandy breakout in August. He knows how to feed 300 men in a field, in mud, in rain, in snow, on the move. He is, in the exact meaning of the word, a professional. He comes to attention. Patton tells him to stand at ease. "Tell me what happened." Briggs tells him. It takes 90 seconds. He has been thinking about this for 2 days. He has the answer at the front of his mouth because he has been waiting for someone to ask. The blocked junction. The 2 trucks that were hit. The alternate route. The neighboring sector. The permission needed. The request he wrote on the 20th. The silence for nearly 2 days. Patton listens. When Briggs finishes, Patton does not look at him. He looks at Lieutenant Colonel Carver. "Did you know about this?" "No, sir. Should you have?" Carver pauses. There is only one honest answer. Yes, sir. Patton nods once. He turns to the supply officer. The men who served under Patton through 3 campaigns and 4 countries all said the same thing about him in later years. He was the loudest man in the army when nothing was wrong. When something was wrong, he became very quiet. And when he became very quiet, you wanted to be somewhere else. He is very quiet now. You took a report about men not eating, Patton says, and you put it in a stack. The supply officer does not speak. You did not flag it. You did not walk it across the room and put it on your commander's desk. You filed it. For nearly 2 days, this report sat in this heated building, in front of a man with hot coffee, while a 19-year-old boy in a foxhole 1 mile from here was eating cold canned meat with his hands. Because his fingers could not hold a spoon, the supply officer's face does not change. It is not that he is hiding anything. It is that he cannot feel anything yet. The feeling will come later, when he is alone, when he tries to sleep, but Patton is still talking. There is a kind of failure. Patton says that is the failure of cowardice. A man runs. A man hides. A man refuses an order. That kind of failure I understand. I do not forgive it. But I understand it. It comes from fear. And fear is human. He takes 1 step closer. There is another kind of failure. It is the failure of imagination. A man does not understand that the piece of paper in front of him is a human being. He does not understand that a report dated December 20th means that on December 20th, somewhere out in the cold, a soldier was waiting for him to do his job. That kind of failure is not human. That kind of failure is what loses wars. The supply officer is looking at the floor. Patton turns back to Carver. 2 things will happen now. Yes, sir. First, the alternate route is authorized immediately. Sergeant Briggs will leave this building in the next 5 minutes. He will get in a truck. His men will be eating hot food before the sun goes down. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Second, Lieutenant Sykes will be assigned forward to a rifle platoon. Effective tomorrow morning, he will spend the next 14 days in a foxhole. He will eat what they eat. He will sleep where they sleep. He will not be there to write reports. He will be there to learn what a report looks like from the other side of the paper. Carver nods. Patton looks at the supply officer one more time. When you come back, Lieutenant, I want you to remember that the boy on the running board was a real person. He has a mother. She is waiting for him to come home. If he does not come home, she will not care that you were busy. She will only care that he was hungry, and that nobody read the page. He turns to Briggs. Sergeant, get in the truck. Briggs salutes and he is gone. Patton walks out through the splintered door into the cold. He does not look back. He gets in the staff car. He sits for a moment with his hands on his knees. Then he opens his map case and writes 1 line in pencil in the corner of the map. Kitchens are behind the spear. Fix it. To understand why what just happened mattered, you need to know what was happening at the same time in 3 other places. The first place was a cellar in Bastogne. 50 miles north, General Anthony McAuliffe, 46 years old, was eating a cold can of beans and looking at a situation map. His division had been surrounded for 2 days. They were running low on ammunition, running low on bandages, running low on medicine. They had stopped serving hot meals on the 20th. The men in the foxholes around Bastogne were eating the same thing as the boy from Worcester. Rations. Cold. With their hands earlier that morning, McAuliffe had written that 1-word reply, nuts, to the German surrender demand. It would become one of the most famous words in American military history. There would be books, movies, plaques, but on that afternoon, McAuliffe was not thinking about plaques. He was thinking about the fact that his men had not eaten a hot meal in 3 days. And there was nothing he could do about it until somebody broke through. The second place was a stone building in Luxembourg City. Third Army Forward Headquarters, Brigadier General Hugh Gaffey, Chief of Staff, was on the telephone with Colonel Walter J. Muller, the Third Army's Chief Supply Officer. Muller had been with Patton since North Africa. He was the most respected logistics officer in the U.S. Army in Europe. Gaffey said Patton had inspected a convoy on the Arlon road, and that the general had come back, his exact word, unhappy. Muller said, About what? Gaffey said, food. There was a long silence on the line. Then Muller said, I will get on it. Muller knew what unhappy meant, coming from Patton. He had also been the man who, on September 2nd of that year, had heard Patton say the words, my men can eat their belts, but my tanks have got to have gas. And Muller had understood in that moment that there was a price to Patton's speed. And the price would be paid, not by Patton, but by men in foxholes whose names he would never know. Now the price was coming due. The third place was the road itself. 20 miles of frozen back road between the supply dumps at Arlon and the forward positions of the 26th Division. In the next 4 hours, a change was going to take place on that road. A change that would not appear in any official history of the war. Trucks would be rerouted. Mess sergeants would be given permission to cross into other battalion sectors. 2 extra cooks would be sent to every forward kitchen. A standing order would come down from 3rd Army headquarters. It was signed by Gaffey on Patton's behalf. The order read, reports concerning the feeding of forward troops will be treated as combat priority. Failure to act on such reports within 6 hours will be considered a dereliction of duty. That order would be quietly cancelled in March 1945, after the army crossed the Rhine, after the supply situation stabilized. It would not appear in Patton's memoirs. It would not appear in his published diary. It would survive as one page in a folder at the National Archives, declassified in 1972, read by maybe 11 people in the next 50 years, but on the afternoon of December 20, 1944, that order moved trucks. The trucks moved food. The food moved into insulated containers. The containers were loaded onto 2 2.5-ton trucks. The trucks took the alternate route Sergeant Briggs had found on the 20th, through the neighboring battalion sector, past a burned-out farmhouse, across a damaged stone bridge, into a clearing where the 328th Infantry Regiment of the 26th Division was dug in along a tree line facing northeast. The trucks arrived at 16:30 hours, 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun had just gone down behind the trees. The boy was in a foxhole. He had been in it since 2:00 in the morning. His feet had stopped feeling like feet around dawn. He had been given a fresh box of K-rations at noon. He had not opened it. He could not open it. His fingers would not bend. He heard the trucks before he saw them. He thought at first that the trucks were artillery. The cold did that to you. Everything that moved sounded like something that could kill you. Then he smelled the food. It came through the pines on the wind. Beef, onions, something like gravy, something hot. He did not move. He could not believe what his nose was telling him. He had been smelling cold metal and his own breath for 3 days. The smell of hot food was not real. It was a thing his brain was inventing, because his brain had stopped working properly. Then he heard the voice, a sergeant calling out positions, calling out men to come forward, calling out his name. He climbed out of the foxhole. His legs did not work. He fell once. He got up. He walked toward the smell. There was a line forming at the back of the truck. Men were coming out of the trees the way deer come out at dusk, slowly, in pieces. Unsure, the cook at the back of the truck was Donald Briggs. He had a ladle. He was filling tins. He was not talking. He looked at every man as he came up, and he made sure every tin was full. The boy from Worcester reached the front of the line. Briggs looked at him. Briggs had served 4,000 breakfasts to steel workers coming off the night shift in Pittsburgh. He knew what hunger looked like. He knew what cold looked like. He also knew what a 19-year-old who had given up looked like. He filled the tin to the rim. He handed it over. The boy took the tin in both hands. The heat came through the metal into his fingers. His fingers started to hurt, which meant they were waking up, which meant they were still his. He did not eat it standing up. He sat down on the ground in the snow with his back against the wheel of the truck. He held the tin against his chest like it was the last living thing in the world. He did not cry while he ate. The crying came later. He ate slowly. His stomach had forgotten how to receive food, and he understood, somewhere under his ribs, that this meal was not just a meal. This meal was a message. The message was that somebody somewhere behind all the maps and the radios and the stacks of paper, had remembered him. He did not know that the somebody was a 59-year-old general with 3 stars on his helmet, who had stopped a staff car on a frozen road 4 hours earlier because a convoy was not moving. He did not know any of that yet. He would learn it in pieces over the next month. The way rumors travel through an army. By the end of January, every man in the 26th Division would have heard some version of the story. Most versions would be wrong. The version that was right would never be written down. But sitting in the snow with a tin of hot beef stew against his chest, he knew only this. The food had come. Somebody had asked the question, and the answer had reached him in time, 4 days later, 1650 hours, outside the village of Assenois, 3 miles south of Bastogne. A column of Sherman tanks from the 37th Tank Battalion of the 4th Armored Division pushes through the last German positions on the road north. The lead tank is commanded by a young lieutenant colonel named Creighton Abrams. He is 30 years old. He smokes a cigar. He has been in the saddle for 96 straight hours. His tanks break through the German line at 15 minutes after 4. By 4:45 they are inside the Bastogne perimeter. The men of the 101st Airborne come out of their foxholes to watch them roll in. The siege is over. In the cellar, someone opens a bottle. McAuliffe does not drink. He smiles. He puts on his coat. He walks outside to meet Abrams. The 2 men shake hands in the middle of a frozen street. German bodies still in the snow on either side of them. A Sherman tank idling behind them. The smell of diesel and burnt gunpowder in the air. This is the moment that goes in the history books. This is the moment in the movies. This is the moment Patton writes about that night in his diary, 50 miles south in Luxembourg City. The entry is in his own handwriting. It survives in a leather-bound volume at the Library of Congress. Later transcribed by the historian Martin Blumenson and published in 1974, the entry reads, in part, "The relief of Bastogne is the most brilliant operation we have thus far performed, and is, in my opinion, the outstanding achievement of this war." He writes about the 4th Armored. He writes about Abrams. He writes about the speed of the pivot. He writes about the 72 hours. He writes about the weather. He writes about the Germans. He does not write about the road outside Arlon. He does not write about the convoy. He does not write about the boy from Worcester, or Lieutenant Sykes, or Sergeant Briggs, or the stack of paper third from the bottom, or the order he signed that afternoon. In all 873 pages of his published diary covering the European campaign, there is not one word about December 22, 1944, on the road outside Arlon. For Patton, it did not happen. For Patton, it was not history. History was Bastogne. History was the pivot. History was Verdun and the look on the faces in that room. A staff car stopped behind a slow convoy? A boy on a running board? A question asked into the cold? That was not history. That was Tuesday afternoon. To Patton, the difference was obvious. To the boy on the running board, it was not. The boy survived the Battle of the Bulge. He survived the rest of the war. The 26th Infantry Division kept fighting through January, through February, through the crossing of the Sauer River in March, through the link-up with Soviet forces in May. He was wounded twice. He came home in September 1945. He weighed 38 pounds less than when he left. He went back to Worcester. Went back to the small town outside it where his family lived. He took a job at the post office. He married a woman he had known in high school. They had 3 children. He did not talk about the war. This is the part I want you to hear carefully. Because this part is true about more men than you know. He did not talk about the war. When his children asked, he said it was cold. When his grandchildren asked, he said it was a long time ago. When the local paper in 1979 did a feature on the 35th anniversary of the Bulge and asked for veterans, he did not call. He went to work. He came home. He sat in his chair. He read the paper. He watched the news. He fixed the porch. He shoveled the driveway in winter, even after his sons were old enough to do it, because shoveling was something he could do without thinking. And on certain days, he needed to do something without thinking. And every year, on the first cold morning of December, He made that pot of coffee, and he sat at the kitchen table in the dark, and he watched the snow on his lawn for 50 years, until December 1993, when his youngest son found him at that same table. Here is something the story doesn't usually tell you. Patton died on December 21, 1945, exactly 1 year less 24 hours after he stopped that staff car on the road outside Arlon. He died in a hospital in Heidelberg, Germany, of a blood clot in the lung. It was a complication of a spinal injury he had suffered 12 days earlier. His staff car had been hit at low speed by an army truck on a Sunday morning outside Mannheim. He was the only person in the car seriously hurt. His neck was broken. He was paralyzed from the neck down, but he stayed awake and clear-headed for all 12 days. He was 60 years old. In the days before he died, he was heard to say more than once, "This is a hell of a way to die." He was buried in the American Military Cemetery at Hamm, Luxembourg, 20 miles from the road where he had stopped the staff car. He is still there. He asked to be buried with his men. His grave sits at the head of the long rows. There is nothing special about the stone. It is the same white marble cross as every other stone in the cemetery. He wanted it that way. There are 5,076 American soldiers buried at Hamm, men from every division that fought in the Bulge, the 4th Armored, the 26th Infantry, the 80th Infantry, the 101st Airborne, and some of the men who never got a hot meal on December 22nd, because the trucks did not reach every position, because the road was too long, because the night came too fast. They are all there together. There is one more thing. 30 miles east of Hamm, in a village called Eschdorf in Luxembourg, population 300, there is a small monument to the 26th Infantry Division. Most tourists never see it. It is on a side road. The men who built it are dead, but the flowers are kept fresh. They are kept fresh by the children of the people, the 26th, liberated in 1944. Those children are now in their 80s themselves. Every December, they lay new flowers at the base of the monument. Nobody makes them do it. They have been doing it, quietly, for 80 years. The Yankee Division took 2,156 casualties in that 1 month of December 1944. More than the entire strength of a regiment. They are not in the famous photographs. They are not in the famous movies, but there are flowers on their monument every winter, placed there by people whose parents ate again because the 26th arrived in time. I want to leave you with one question. Not about Patton. Patton's questions were answered a long time ago, in the ground at Hamm, and in the 873 pages of a diary that did not mention a Tuesday afternoon. The question is for the rest of us. What do you do in your own life with the report that is third from the bottom of the stack? Because the truth of December 22nd, 1944 is not the truth of a great general doing a great thing. The great general did, in his own mind, almost nothing that day. He stopped a car. He asked a question. He gave an order. He went home and wrote about something else. The truth of December 22nd, 1944 is the truth of a 19-year-old boy on a running board who did not know who he was talking to, and a 31-year-old cook who had been waiting 2 days for someone to ask the right question, and a 25-year-old supply officer who learned, in the worst possible way, that paper is not paper when there is a man at the end of it. And the truth is also this. Most of the time in most of our lives, nobody stops the car. The convoy moves on, the report stays in the stack, the boy goes back to his foxhole, the cold continues, the hunger continues, and eventually, somewhere, somebody freezes or starves or breaks, and nobody ever knows what would have happened if somebody had asked. December 22, 1944 was the rare day when somebody asked. That is why the story is worth telling. If you value stories like this one, the ones the history books skip because they happened on Tuesday afternoons, this channel exists for you. There is a new one every week. Subscribe if that sounds worthwhile. The boy from Worcester ate his stew at 4:30 in the afternoon. He lived to be an old man who made coffee on cold December mornings for 50 more years. His youngest son still keeps a photograph of him, taken in 1946, at the post office where he worked. He is smiling in the photograph. His hands are in his pockets. You cannot see the cracked knuckles for the men who are gone, for the men who are still here, for the question that got asked, and for the answer that came in time. This is Obscure Walled U Chronicles. Until next time.